Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Hey, James, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me here. I am an industrial. I identify myself as that. It's really everything. I was literally born industrial. My father was in manufacturing 42 years. I worked my way through college on the plant floor. My sister became an industrial engineer. Grew up during the transition of analog to digital through the 90s. And things like mobile networks were being formed that weren't there before. The advent of Yahoo in 94, Google in 98. And I was recruited by the largest industrial directory that was seeing competitive pressure from Google. And they were transitioning from print to a digital world. So I've worked with some icons of industry, saw some opportunities to provide some value to the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector, and formed Industrial Strength Marketing. The brand of the agency now is Industrial, and essentially we help companies be better marketers and sellers of their industrial products and services. So I've been doing that since 2003, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Yeah. And why'd you pick marketing versus something else?
I love it. It was really, when you see like hurricane force winds behind a need in the marketplace, and you see it's completely unaddressed, and people are asking you, why the heck would you create a strategy, a digital, an agency group around this sector? Well, it was completely underserved. And so it was clearly a need, and I clearly had the DNA, and really, I think, retrospectively, the vision to really create what was needed.
And what's unique about the industrial market space or manufacturing?
There's a lot that's unique about it, even to the point where often we call it B2B. But in manufacturing, essentially the way we look at it from a standpoint of someone who's uninitiated is to think about anything that you use. We really focus from an industrial standpoint, whether it's marketing or thinking, around everything that goes into that product. We're not typically selling to the end user. We're literally, I'm looking at my Mac right now, and my camera, my Logitech camera, and we help the companies who make the dies and the molds and the presses and the injection molding equipment that make the plastic housing for it, the companies that manufacturing the lens and want to be specified in it. So in any one given product, we see the ability to convey it, to move it, to ship it, supply chain. So really anything that we look at all of the multiple businesses and relationships that go into that one thing, whether it's the phone in your hand or whether it's the car in your driveway. We don't sell to the end user. We connect industrial buyers with suppliers and help them be better marketers and sellers, and honestly get them in a position to be specified to literally be designed into a product very often.
Yeah. And how do you go through that process? Sounds complicated.
I think it's a lot of the same thing. The industrials now are using this, we're human, right? So we use a lot of the same channels. We use a lot of the same channels to consume information that everybody else does. And there's a number of channels that have a lot of our attention, but clearly there's industry, and there's the sector of expertise that you have to come into, whether you're designing very technical things or not. So the way we approach it is essentially to connect on a human level with people, everything from the C-suite to at the brand level, but also at the business unit level. And we're really trying to figure out where they are in a number of places, whether they have a marketing function or not in their business. The 258,000 manufacturers in the United States, there's so many of them that not only don't really focus on marketing, but don't really even have a marketing function in their business. There's not a CMO. And essentially the companies that are really outperforming are the companies that are truly making marketing a strength of their business. And that's a premise that I speak about, we communicate about, and we start with seeing where they are in that journey and what their feeling is about the role marketing, communications, and technology is going to play in them growing their business. And then we start to really see what, where they're at in that journey. And it's both marketing, but it's also digital transformation, which, Industry 4.0, the industrial Internet of Things, all of those things are impacting consumer brands as well as industrial brands. And we try to meet them where they're at, to either do it with them, for them, part of a team. And that's basically how it starts.
And if they don't have a CMO, are you working with business development or the CEO or?
Yeah, we're we'll work with air quotes vice president of sales and marketing, and marketing is typically in air quotes, to a mid-level marketing manager. We'll work with product management and teams, a business unit lead, and often we work with the C-suite, specifically the leader, to really address what their growth agenda is. Where do they want to be in terms of positioning their organization? So what we'd expect agencies to do from a brand positioning standpoint, the role of values in addressing like the skilled labor gap. You want to be a great place to work, so you really have to look at culture. So a lot of times we help people understand who they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there, but how do they create a well-positioned, highly differentiated company? And those marketing sciences come in really at the strategic level of marketing, the executive corporate level of strategic marketing management. And then we can start looking at, okay, what business are we in? And then at the business unit level, they're looking at, an obvious marketplace, and they're looking at how they compete. And then at the brand level, it's like, how do I implement those strategies, right? I'm the marketing practitioner. We're literally working with the brands at that point. So there's really 3 levels that we look at: the corporate, at the business unit level of strategic marketing management, and at the brand level when we're, literally closest to activation.
Yeah. And what do you typically prescribe? Because I know, like, the technology space is everyone does the same thing. They copy each other. They look at what their competitor does and they try and do it a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we try to learn before we act.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of folks come in and they talk about marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Practitioners. Let's do SEO. Let's do account-based marketing. Let's focus on implementing your technology infrastructure. Let's look at all of these things we can do. I think just to kind of turn your question a little bit, it's like it's literally, how are we going to build the marketing function? How are we going to build the sales function as an integrated unit that's centered on the customer?
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're really trying to challenge the organization to create a highly distinguished, differentiated, brand position, but also marketing function. We want to see and instigate and challenge, and one of our core values is tough love into, it's crazy not to have a chief marketing officer or a chief growth officer focused on addressing your growth agenda.
Yeah.
And you need to create the business and infrastructure with the same rigor that you do with your manufacturing way you operate and make things and design them. And so we look at it that way. And then we really look at, okay, how do we build the foundation, connect the plumbing, and now we can actually put stuff through it. So rather than talk technically, we'll say, okay, now let's actually have clarity, who you are, where you're going. Let's start looking at, okay, what matters most? Who is the customer? What is the addressable market? What is the problem in the market we're solving? And then how do we really form and articulate that value proposition? Our belief is that it's our first job to get them ready for marketing.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we do is an assessment, and that's actually what we're sharing right now, is a readiness assessment, which, by the way, most people fail. And it really wakes them up about what they actually don't know. And it's so visceral that it wakes them up often about the things they're doing without even having the ability to measure it and effectively manage it.
And what do you see them doing wrong? Do they not know how the decision is being made within their customer base?
Yes, very, very often when you look at, the executive level of strategic marketing management and specifically the CEO, a lot of them think they know what their customers want, but when you actually ask them directly in a safe environment, they'll actually tell you very, very different things. And so what we also find is they don't know things like, what are the reasons why people do business with them? Why don't they do business with them? Most businesses don't have a win-loss review process. So when we ask them that, we find we actually get most of the insights when we win. Yeah. And why. And when we lose, yes, you get surprised. And so that's that's a question they don't ask. And one of the other things we ask is like, what is the lifetime value of a customer? What is your customer acquisition cost? Yeah. What is the acquisition cost to lifetime value ratio? Are you spending too much on marketing or not? What's the rescission rate? And not knowing customer acquisition costs with your sales team and the marketing investments you're making is crazy. And those last three things I mentioned, those are the three numbers that go into the ROI, an actual ROI equation. So we're finding a lot of businesses don't know very important metrics. They don't know why people do business with them. They often don't have clarity as to why people do and not do business with them. And when we do a readiness assessment, which we give to everybody for free, it's to inspire conversations, not it's to bring people together and say, hey, it's okay, because now and now we can actually start getting those numbers, and you can actually build trust and have a better relationship with marketing, because a lot of them don't trust it.
Well, because they don't understand it, and there's not that perfect attribution from I spend $1, I get $10, right?
Yeah, but the thing is if you know where you're at, I can't tell you how often folks, they judge marketing and its results subjectively because they have no context. They can't even agree upon the definition of, like, let's say, what a lead is.
Right.
And what is a qualified lead, and what is one that's qualified by sales or qualified by marketing efforts? What are the ways that you determine that? Is that really reality? And so when we start to uncover those things, and when people start to realize them, they start to agree with our premise. It's that really we need to get ready. We need to get these baselines. And what would be the impact if we knew these things? Yeah. And we look at fundamentally 40 questions, and we share them with people, because our vision and our mission is to make, to better those who design, make, and move the world. My personal one is to make people better for having known and or work with me. And I think that's one of the most fulfilling things we do, because it's a very vulnerable moment when folks often fail and don't know these questions. And and honestly, within a month, you can know all of them. And now all of a sudden your questions and your goals aren't subjective. You're not firing a person, who in sales in 6, 7, 8 months, when you're realizing the velocity of your sale takes 12 to 14 months for capital equipment. So that's the stuff that empowers people to be better.
And how do you get them to have confidence in this plan when it is 12, 18 months out, and the life expectancy of a CMO is 18 months? Right?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I look at the stat every day. How do you get them to see it out? I think the confidence of understanding where you are. Here's the thing. If you don't know where you started, a lot of people are marketing and they don't know where they're at. You can't judge where we took you. Right. And often it's not like, hey, this is instant gratification. It's, whoa, it's not what I want, but the needle's moving in the right direction. And often we call the first year that we work with a company, that's, not all of them are at this stage. I'm just giving you an example, but what we see is when they see that needle moving and ticking, and by the end of the year, they're agreeing and we're agreeing. This will be the first year we have a baseline metric. Yeah. When you're setting your goals for 2021, we're actually going to know it's not, hey, we want to be, $21 million by 2021 because it just sounds cool.
And double.
And more often than not, that's what we're doing. And that completely changes the tone of all relationships, ours included. Yeah. Whether we're diving in and doing the marketing, or just really setting the strategy, or implementing the analytics, or connecting the marketing communications technology and CRM and marketing automation systems, or working data or analytics. Those are things we all do, but who cares? Like it's about the journey of being a better marketer. And we think that's going to be outside of their innovation. I'm a big Drucker guy. The two distinguishing functions of a business are marketing and innovation. The rest are costs, even though, general accounting principles say marketing is an expense. If you do it right, it should be a revenue generating activity as you integrate it with sales and the way you operate and, center it around the customer.
And how about as far as like the activities and the generational attitudes towards them? Because what I see, I was talking to a CMO just last week, and he wasn't even active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
He was like, can you give me a demonstration of, I'll tag you in the post. Like, didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. So we are, so I'll answer it from my point of view. I believe you've got to make your way of living life and doing business obsolete before generational technology, market forces, or the competition does. And that generational component is a big, big part of this question. And so manufacturing, suffers from a challenge of there's a incorrect perception of manufacturing. Every cool technology device is manufacturing. It is industrial. And that's what's amazing about it. And we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, automation. I think it's going to free humanity from repetitive, boring, soul-sucking work. But when we deal with the executive and the CEO and the C-suite, and they're not yet, digital native. They're not born. They weren't. They're truly born industrial. Still pretty industrial. I'm Gen X. No one talks about us, but we were born industrial. But we had Pong. We got Atari. We had Commodore VIC-20s. We had the first PCs that you can own and the PC Junior. Yep. And we went from analog to digital cell networks. Saw the rise of social. So we're this interesting generation. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about us Gen Xers who actually have the sensibilities that we can appreciate the things in the past in the community and the tribal components when we're offline. But we absolutely have a little bit more experience and maturity to see the pitfalls of how we leverage technology and how it can bring us to our lesser selves. So when we talk to that industrial age CEO, what we're finding is that they are slowly adopting the technology. And it's really our job to help them articulate its value. And oft not, we see marketers trying to do the shiny object thing. And so what we do is we try to break it down from a standpoint of, you've got to be targeted. We don't talk about SEO. It's like, look, or marketing. We put it in terms like you got to be discoverable. Right. Instead of like, well, let's talk about content strategy. Well, you have to be communicative to be discoverable. That content, and we talk about content, and then we start talking about it's not just putting crap out there. It's about being engaging. You have to put engaging, useful, and actionable content. And then we talk about, well, how do you turn it into sales? Well, you have to be responsive. You have 10 times less likely chance to even get that sale if you take even 30 minutes to an hour to respond. We talk about response time. And when we talk about those high-level, simplistic narratives related to the marketing sciences, we find that's how we break through the folks that are not adopting those technologies. And when we show the competitive differentiating factor and start, quite frankly, showing them the numbers and truly attribution of where leads are coming from, how the industrial buyer has changed and they're digital. Over half our workforce is millennial. And you have us Gen Xers. So it's already flipped and they know
it. They know it, but you still see, especially recently, the lock-in on events where they will spend 100 times more on an event so they can stand in a booth, swipe somebody's badge, give a coffee cup out and call it a lead.
Yeah.
Versus like what we're doing right now, where it's opt-in, no like and trust is already established.
Yeah.
And it's passive consumption of content.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Okay. So one thing you have to understand like about events and like in our industry, trade shows, right? For instance, the thing is they're highly relevant when you have a new industry that's new, let's say electrification or AI. So there's a marketing artificial intelligence conference up in Cleveland every year now for us. Check it out. It's important stuff. So when you see the ascendancies of new technologies and new things are being formed and you want to go to the expo and you want to see it, that's when that is super important. but even but it's also even important for these legacy industries. And one of the biggest ones in manufacturing equipment is IMTS. It happens every year, and it's a massive exhibition. But there is a ton of business of capital equipment that's sold. That's where you go to buy it. That's where you meet. All the executives are there. They literally have 3-story booths that are, the size of small cities, it seems. But I do believe, and this comes from my Gen Xer in me, right? I do believe, though, that we are a tribe and humans still need to be together with humans. What I do think is different, though, is we have to merge those different sensibilities, and the experience of investing in trade has to be there, but also the context of that moment, which is important, which you should think about strategically, is important, but not at the expense of the 24/7, 365-day a year marketing you could be doing.
Right.
And you look at those relative investment levels.
Yeah.
So those are the conversations that we have. And I am actually a fan of the right shows done in the right way. You promote it before, you have a strategy literally there, and you actually leverage your nurturing afterwards. And that's where the technology could be a huge assist from
right,
getting.
But I think a lot of people treat it like Valentine's Day, where that's the one day you're nice to your partner, right? It's like, no, you got to be nice every day.
Brian, like I have a different relationship with Valentine's Day. So
yeah.
I am married to the most gorgeous woman inside and out in the world. And I don't know what the heck she was thinking. And I know, and I made the mistake of calling it a Hallmark holiday. So don't do that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like Valentine's is like me represents that period of attention loss. So we all start our New Year's resolutions, and you want to go to the gym. And the folks that really go to the gym and stay there, they call them Valentiners, because they all come in January and they're gone by Valentine's Day. So
at best, yeah.
Right. When you say Valentine, Valentine's for me, it means that point where you have to decide if you're going to see this through.
Right, because so much of marketing today, when it's so noisy out there, there's 10 vendors in every niche. At least, right? Think of marketing on it. Think of all the products that you look at, right? You're overwhelmed. So branding's really important.
Yes.
That relationship with the market's really important. Word of mouth is so important. And that's an everyday 24/7 type activity.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the things that we call these very simple narratives I mentioned are tenets. What are these tenets of marketing? And one of them is persistence. You have to be persistent. And, you'll see folks out there like Gary Vee and other influencers out there, like they're talking about at scale. You need to be posting 20 times to, LinkedIn alone. And there truly isn't a penalty in this battle for attention. It actually is pretty important. And I think what we're seeing in the manufacturing and the industrial sector, and certainly across B2B, is that companies are starting to do it, but they're not really thinking about how,
right?
And thinking strategically and thinking value and are they truly telling authentic, engaging and stories that create empathy, and are they doing it to serve,
right?
Or just they see the new X5000, who cares,
right? But even. You could take that influencer, but he talks about engagement, but doesn't comment on one comment, right? So, and it's not him; it's somebody who works for him doing it, right? So that it's hypocritical, because I'm on LinkedIn all day, and what works is engaging, two-way communication. Someone puts a comment, you ask about the comment, clarify that. I have a question about that.
Yeah, and I think there's the point when you reach that scale, it's disingenuous to say that you're going to do that in the first place. So I don't really critique on that level.
Yeah.
But I do think we have the ability, though, and I'm sure Gary Vee does it too, right? Like he responds here and there, but that's the reality. And I think he does it through the context of his creation itself, and the relationships that are being made as part of that. But for me, you think about social, for instance. Social, I was busy when Twitter was formed.
Yeah.
I didn't have time for that crap. You know what I mean? Like when you're an executive and you're not, people were taking advantage of an opportunity to build awareness, brand scale. TikTok, same thing. People are building quick notoriety. We'll see how long that phenomenon lasts in terms of its current form and how it's going to have to pivot over time. But I do think that tenet of being, communicative is super important, and being engaging is not just the content itself, but you have to be an engager is important. But I think you have to do it in a context that it's more of a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not putting more noise and
it's not an RSS feed.
Right? Yeah. I actually just had a meeting with a major global brand, and it was yesterday, literally. And, one of the ones I created the business to have an opportunity to maybe one day work for, and it's that meeting.
Yeah.
And, one of the things we told them is that we really didn't want to create just content and more noise for them. Gartner did a great study on the fact that people are getting so much information now when it comes to B2B, making B2B buying decisions. There's so much information. It's actually making it harder for them to make a decision and not have regret about that decision, because there is such a surplus of information and content, but there's also an abundance of, as I said, abundance of good content. And I told them, you're dealing with companies that are dealing with, certain aspects of transforming their business. Can't get too deep into it. And so what Gartner said, and everyone should check this out. They said, we have to, as marketers and especially sellers, we have to be in the business of not just giving them information, giving them posts. We have to be the ones that are saying, this is all great information. We have to be in the business of sense making.
Curating. Yeah. Condensing.
It's helping make sense of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they can curate, they can collect, they can go get this information, and how do we make sense of it? And that becomes the opportunity where it positions you to be a guide for them.
Yes.
It changes your dynamic as a marketer, as a seller. And I think that is where I truly believe that. I read that and I was like, okay, that's my golden nugget. I'm going to save that one, and I'm going to really rethink things about how we do content and how do we actually guide our relationships. And that's one of the things that led to us doing a marketing readiness assessment. That assessment, we said, we need to be that guide. We need them to make sense of marketing. We need our first job to get them ready for it, or at least see where they're at.
Right.
And meet them where they're at.
And that becomes your selling tool. It's like your little ROI calculator, or your website grader.
Yeah. The thing for us, so we have 3 brands, right? So we have formed Industrial Strength Marketing, and under that brand, and we have a show, we talk about it, and we're going to be launching that soon. But our real brand is Industrial, the agency, and then we created Industrial Marketer, which is our blog platform, publication, news, info, trends formed by industrial marketers. And then you have me, right? I'm the CEO, founder, and I am this true industrialist, and I'm out there just trying to build relationships with folks like you. But ultimately, we have to move away from doing stuff. If we are judged by making stuff, we're going to be out of business really quick.
Yeah, we've done enough stuff.
we have great brands, we have an agency, but if we're designing websites and building web pages, and for me, that's just a byproduct of the fact that we have view that everything starts with strategy, and we address the 3 animals in the room: the elephant in the room, the sacred cow, and the folks that think they're unicorns, and they can do it all. Or God forbid, the hippos, like
won't move.
Highest paid person, right? Highest paid person in the room. So I think I'm going to write a book about those animals, actually. But that's it. We've got to move from doing marketing stuff to committing to being better marketers and sellers of our products and services.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can get to that framework, and if you believe what we believe, right, it's that whole why, then I think we're going to be able to have a relationship. And I think that's where, not only our agency, because we picked the right niche, we feel like we nailed our niche, but for any of your listeners, anybody out there, you've got to do that same thing. And you've got to realize, really how well positioned are you? What is your addressable market? What is your unique value proposition? And those customer segments, you got to really look internally. And if you start there and you commit to understanding where you are at with your marketing and sales function and how that centers around the customer and ops and everything that else goes into it, I think you have a good basis to go on a great journey, because the way you make revenue almost 100% of the time after X amount of decades ceases to be the primary revenue source for your business. Yeah. So you have to make your way of doing business obsolete. It's absolutely imperative. And marketing, communications, and technology is going to be a big part of that.
Cool. Hey, James, I really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your work?
Oh, yes. Visit me at industrialstrengthmarketing.com. That's our website. And we will be launching a podcast focused on helping folks make marketing the strength of their business in April. So we're really excited, and you got to let me know how we can help you too, Brian. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.